I'm not casting blame on you because I know none of you have ever done this before. I do, however, feel that you're being unduly influenced by counsel that may not serve your interest as being an independent body.
Well, I'll address that comment. When I received a copy of the complaint and I read through it, I actually consulted an attorney privately on my own, with no knowledge of any of the other board members or anything. It was me wanting to go talk to an attorney
Right.
and make sure that what I was reading correctly. That attorney told me that typically that ethics board or boards, committees, and everything can gain legal representation, and the name that he suggested to me was Bill Berryman. Then I get the email from the city, Bill Berryman, so okay, that's who I would have come into the meeting to suggest. Other than an email exchange back and forth on the city email, I've not had any conversation with Mr. Berryman or the other board members prior to tonight. My only previous conversation with Mr. Berryman is I talked with him on an issue involving the Clark County government more than a decade ago that involved me personally. And that's the only other conversation I've ever had with him other than, hey, how you doing at meetings when Clark County and Oconee County entered into a mutual contract with each other on housing inmates, and Mr. Berryman was part of preparing that contract. That's the only other time I've ever said, he's not influencing me.
I appreciate that, and I don't know Mr. Berryman. My concern is the fact that just by virtue of the fact that Mr. Berryman is being paid for by the city to represent the city's interest, to me is a conflict of interest. It's also a bar violation. But you all can proceed how you want to, but I'm raising that objection.
As we move forward, I would want to ask Ms. Lyle and Mayor Bridges if they have a list of people that they want to subpoena for the hearing, and I want to ask Ms. Corcoran if she has a complete list of people that she wants to subpoena for the hearing. I know that she named people in the complaint, but I don't know that whether or not she has additional witnesses. And I know as part of the adopted procedures for tonight, one was going to be an adopted subpoena.
And it has a process for submitting witness lists
Right.
5 days prior to the hearing and copying. Everybody knows who the witnesses are going to be, and the list of documents 5 days prior to the hearing date.
And when would you want that list of the witnesses?
If we adopt this procedure, you would need to, in accordance with that procedure, within 5 days.
And at that time, do you want the evidence that I have?
I don't think you want to give us your written evidence ahead of time unless you just wanted to. But,
Well, I mean, I think you should look at my side of it too.
right, I think that would all be in there.
Yes.
I'm just one person speaking.
Could I just maybe briefly go over the rules so we can understand what I'm proposing here? There has to be 10 days notice prior to the hearing, both to the complainant and to the respondents of the hearing date. And it will be sent by email if the city clerk has email addresses. If not, it will go by first-class mail. And if a party appears at the hearing and participates, that party is waived notice of the hearing. Of course, the hearing will be done. There's no question about that. The board reserves the right to proceed with the hearing if the complainant or respondent, after receiving notice, fails to appear at hearing without good cause shown for being there. Now, this is important. Not later than 5 business days prior to the hearing, a party, either a complainant or respondent, shall furnish to the city clerk with copy to the other parties a list of witnesses who the party intends to call at the hearing, and either copies of the documents that the party intends to introduce, or just a list of such documents and a summary of what they are. The board shall not accept into the record any document or witness that has not been previously disclosed as provided herein, except upon good cause shown as determined by the board. The city clerk shall issue subpoenas to the persons on the list provided by the parties, and there's a form of subpoena attached. Service of the subpoena shall be made by personal service, and any citizen of the state of Georgia of legal age shall be authorized to serve the subpoenas and shall file a return of service with the clerk. Each party shall have the opportunity to make an opening statement to the board, with the complainant going first. Following the evidentiary portion of the hearing, each party shall have the opportunity to make a closing statement to the board, with the complainant going first. The maximum time permitted for a party's opening statement or closing argument shall be 5 minutes, and there's no rebuttal or response. As far as evidence goes, all testimony before the board shall be rendered under oath or affirmation, by oral testimony or depositions, and with the right of cross-examination. The board has the authority to direct the issuance of subpoenas by the clerk for attendance of witnesses or additional information that it might require, to rule on motions, grant continuances, and rule on evidentiary matters. The admissibility of documents or other information and the rules of evidence may be informal as compared to formal judicial proceedings. However, and without limiting the authority of the board, the chair of the board specifically is empowered to make evidentiary rulings regarding the relevancy of testimony or documentary evidence and to exclude irrelevant evidence. And board members shall have the right to ask questions of witnesses. And then the last one is just a quote from the ordinance, which provides that the member of the governing authority who's been accused of misconduct, who's the subject of the inquiry, shall have the right to written notice of the allegations at least 10 business days before hearing, to be represented by counsel, to hear and examine evidence and witnesses, and to present evidence and witnesses in opposition. So that's just a summary of these very brief rules.
May I reply to that? There's one part of that that I think would be improper, and that has to do with number 5, where it says the chair of the board specifically shall be empowered to make evidentiary rulings regarding the relevancy of testimony or documentary evidence and to exclude irrelevant evidence. My objection to that is that I think that some of the evidence that either Ms. Lyle or I would present, or the mayor might present, you may not understand the context of it until it's explained either by myself or through witness testimony. So it wouldn't make sense for you to reject it based on not knowing what that may lead to or how it may relate.
Right now, I don't plan on objecting to anything until I hear everything. I've read through your complaint. I even read through it 3 times because I wanted to make sure I was reading everything right. So that's why we have all agreed that it does need to be moved forward on. So have no fear. I will listen to you. I will listen to both sides. And we take this very seriously.
I understand and I appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the rules as proposed.
I second it.
All in favor? Okay, we don't have to do anything right now.
Well, I think you probably should.
Okay, so do you have your schedule and my schedule and your schedule?
Well, their schedule.
Yeah, and everybody else's schedule. So
So we need to,
for me, it needs to be after 6 o'clock. I'm driving from Ashford to Woody Road now. So,
Driving from South Atlanta, so.
well, it's got to at least be more than 10 days from now,
right.
That's correct.
because there's got to be written notice served for at least 10 days.
And so we're coming up on Friday tomorrow, so I would suggest that the earliest notification date the date that's given would be Monday or Tuesday, so count from there.
We have the complainant and both respondents in the room tonight. Would they agree to accept written notice tonight?
I would, I've got two conflicts. One of them, I think from what you just said, wouldn't apply, October the 24th. The other hopefully also won't apply because it's far out, but December 4th through the 10th.
Oh, Lord, I hope we're not still
Yeah.
doing this December 4th.
Well, I think it's gonna be after October 24th. I don't think it's gonna be that quick.
That's only 7 days.
Yes.
So that's,
So I think we need to at least look at the first, second week of November.
but just for clarification, if we can agree to a date tonight where everyone can be present, we all agree that that constitutes the 10-day written notice provided it's more than 10 days. Would get the clerk to write out a notice tonight? Would you accept that? Clerk Bridges? Okay. Ms. Carter?
Yes.
So what day?
It's gonna be into November. So,
The 24th will be 7 days from now. The 28th will be the 10th day. So it'd have to be after the 29th or later.
so the 31st, everybody's gonna be got the Halloween thing going on. When's the next city council work session? This 14th?
Yeah, the 14th is the work session.
Okay, so the 11th, 12th, or the 7th, 6th, 7th?
The 6th and 7th works for me. The 11th is Veterans Day.
Oh, yeah, we,
12th works for me.
the 12th. Is the 12th okay? Is the 12th okay with you, Ms. Betty? Ms. Wolfman?
Yeah.
Mayor Bruce, is, so, this is 12th okay with you?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, so November 12th, everybody's in agreement, that will be more than the 10 days out, and that's also your written verbal notice and,
What I like to do is I'm filling out the notice and get the clerk to sign it and copy it and.
Madam Chair, if witnesses schedules matter, I've got a meeting that night where we're going to install new council members at another city I represent. Normally, I would be able to get one of my partners to cover that meeting, but I can't do it that night. I can certainly sit for a deposition, but that presents a problem for me as well. And the 7th is the work session for that city.
Would the 6th work?
how about, November 6th?
I don't have a problem. Those are the days that have been discussed, the 7th and the 12th, unfortunately, the only days I've got a conflict. I appreciate the board's accommodation.
Mayor Bridges, is the 6th okay with you? Ms. Betty? Ms. Corcoran?
Yeah. Is that 6 p.m.?
Yeah, it has to be 6, I can't make it.
That's the 6th.
Yeah, November 6th. Ms. Johnson? Is that okay? So November 6th, 6 p.m., we'll have our evidentiary
Evidentiary hearing.
hearing. And Ms. Corcoran, thank you for bringing this up. We will take this very seriously. So, and that November 6th, we hope that we'll at least be on the road.
I appreciate appreciate y'all, and I know this is a volunteer, position, and it's not a nice position to be in, I'm sure. And if I can just say, to the, the subjects, it's not, this is not personal, it's something that citizens have asked me to bring up. That's all that I'm doing, it's not anything more than that.
Can I get the clerk to be making copies of this?
Who member of the board would like any question? So we have to get to that, plus if there's anyone each of the respondents and the complainants would like to subpoena.
Okay. What was that question?
Just want to say, discuss amongst the board members who we all want to question, and then if there's a list of people that the complainant or the respondents would like to subpoena for the hearing, so that we make sure that gets done.
Well, Ms. Betty and Mayor Bridges already planned on being here, so we have to subpoena this. If they do this, we don't have to subpoena.
It's probably better to have them under subpoena, just in case,
Okay, does it have to be verbal or written?
written. And the clerk will just get once the list come in, we'll include the complainants and respondents. It's in there.
Okay, and does that also include Ms. Corcoran since she
No.
brought the complaint?
No.
So only Ms. Betty and Mayor Bridges and then
Plus,
whoever else is?
this is the board wants to call.
Okay.
I personally would like to speak with the person from the city that runs the water and sewer, or the sewer, since it's a sewer, the city clerk and the city attorney.
Okay, so I know that's Mr. Sam on the water, Mr. Mitchell for the city attorney, and you're the city clerk now, right?
Yes.
So it would be Ms. Kay then,
And
the city
Ms.
clerk.
Chen. Ms. Chen's, sorry, not city clerk, city attorney.
Okay,
Ms. Cat,
I'm sorry.
would you hand these to?
Sure.
Plaintiff and respondents, please?
do we need to do this all in? Is everybody?
Yes.
I was looking at the top.
Let's do the vote
Ms.
on
Johnny,
that.
do you want to add anybody to it?
All the people Ms. Corcoran listed in the complaint, I want to discuss. So,
Did you have additional?
no, I think I was trying to remember what you had listed in the complaint.
And it's still possible, at the end of the hearing, you might say, we need additional people. We can do that. Continue.
So, do we, at this point, the people we brought this to, Ms. Cochran, Ms. Cochran, sorry, do we need to request that they be here too?
She doesn't have to say anything else.
So is it that point? Is it?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we subpoena all of the people named in Ms. Corcoran's complaint to be subpoenaed as witnesses.
All in favor? Okay, and we know that right off the top, it's Mr. Sam. It would be Miss Mai, Miss Betty, Mayor Bridges, and Mr. Mitchell.
We get feedback.
And I've got a list of mine that includes a few more people if you like.
Mr. Autry, Mr. Bennett, Miss Kay, you are on the list, and Miss Bennett and Miss Borden. Are y'all here by chance? Miss Bennett or Miss Borden?
Then I'll hear.
They're not? Okay, so we'll update the list to include Mr. Autry, Mr. Bennett, Miss Borden, Mrs. Bennett, and Miss Borden.
If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and give you my list. There's a couple more on there, and then you can just compare.
Oh, okay. Sorry. We were going by that other.
Would you just like to subpoena them? Or do you want us to subpoena?
You all,
Okay, so we already said Miss Mai, Miss Kay, Miss Sandra, Miss Connie, Miss Gabriel, Mr. Mitchell, Mr. Sam, Mr. Autry, Mr. Bennett, oh, Miss Hattie, you're on the list, okay? And Mr. Dwight, I thought I saw you come in, okay.
We're getting some audio feedback. Yes.
And, Mr. Tony McDaniel, is he here?
correct. And there may be one or two, and I think you said we have 5 days. Is that correct?
Yes. You have to provide the list at least 5 days prior to the hearing.
Okay, if there's any more, then and I send that to the city clerk, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mayor Bridges, Ms. Lyles, is there anyone that you want subpoenaed that you can name tonight?
Not tonight, tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Mayor, you both understand that you can submit a list within 5 days to the city clerk?
And then, once y'all get that to the, Miss Meyer, Miss Kay, then they'll get that out and, we'll convene back on November 6th. Okay. If there's nothing further, then I make a motion to adjourn.
The rules do provide for a listing of the documents you intend to introduce. So any papers that you want to let this board look at, you've got to list them and send them to the clerk at least 5 days before the hearing. So that would be, what day is that? Let's go ahead and say that date. Yeah. By Friday, November 1st, you have to provide the clerk with a list of any witnesses and any document, and just describe the documents. You don't have to provide the documents. Just describe what they are in the list, because that's very important.
I have one more question before you close, if I may. Originally, I had requested by Open Records a copy of the city sewer map, and Mr. Mitchell declined to provide that. I would like to have a copy of that so that I can review it ahead of time in color, because it shows very specifically where sewer lines are and so forth.
I haven't even seen that yet, so we have to see that too, so.
Sure.
That is part of my evidence that I asked that she not have.
It's a copy of it as part of the deed evidence.
Mr. Thomas, do you have something to add?
The city administrator has concerns about that being made public. Fact of the matter is that we've been unable to locate that particular map in the city's records. I have contacted Carter and Sloop. The gentleman that served as the city engineer for the city years ago when that project was done was a fellow by the name of Bob Ward. He retired many years ago. And the gentleman that I spoke with told me that those documents are in archive. I got a voicemail from him either yesterday or the day before, and he indicated that they were attempting to locate those documents in the archive. And when he has provided those to me, then we'll consult about what to do with those. But certainly the board will be able to view them, but for public safety reasons, the city administrator has concerns about those being generally made available to the public.
If I can rebut that,
Well,
Mr. Mitchell was,
I want to know about that.
okay.
It's an evidentiary hearing. The mayor and the city council member are going to be, apparently, one of the said, are going to be submitting his evidence.
Don't misunderstand me. I'm saying that we're going to provide them, what we're concerned about is them being like posted on the internet or something like that. Everybody up there, all the witnesses, all the parties will certainly be able to see it.
If I can, I will put in writing or agree, here verbally, to not post the map on the internet. I've actually had a similar sewer map for a couple of years, and that's not been a problem. I'm not a sewer terrorist or whatever is being alleged. But the map that I'm referring to, in addition to the ones that Mr. Mitchell is speaking about, I just asked for the sewer map that is in possession of the city right now. This was a couple weeks ago, and it's actually a very ridiculous video of how Ms. Gabriel held it up to the glass, demanded that I hold my phone behind my back and could look at it for a specified moment in time before she took it away. So I just simply want to have a copy of the map. It's in color, and it shows where sewer lines are.
I think we can address your concern there is if they're gonna submit it as evidence, you get a copy of it at least 5 days before they're here.
Great.
Is that correct? Is that correct?
You get a description of it, you don't necessarily get a copy of it, but that's.
Do I get a copy of her evidence?
Yes, ma'am. Let's get over.
You get a list.
A list, okay.
Mine's available up by Open Records if, and in fact, I'll be glad to just provide them if you'd like, but they're available by Open Records as well.
Okay. Anything else that I'm forgetting?
Have the mayor and Ms. Betty received a copy of the complaint?
I have.
Okay. Mayor, have you gotten a copy of the complaint?
I don't think so.
Okay. Can you make a copy of that available to the mayor? Okay.
Any last comments from anybody before we adjourn? Ms. Jones?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Okay. I'll see y'all on November 6th at 6 p.m.
That's unusual. Just let that be done.
I just need the, your name.
How you doing?